This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, welcome everyone. Afreilichen, 7th day of Chanukah, Erev Zois Chanukah. So let's talk a little bit about Zois Chanukah. It's interesting, the Arizal says that the kavanah of the first day of Chanukah is Kale, which is the first of the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim according to the Arizal. And the second kavanah for the second day of Chanukah is Racham. And the third kavanah for the third day of Chanukah is Chanun. And the fourth kavanah is Erech. And then Apayim. And then Rav. And then Chesed. And then Ve'emes. Comes the 8th day of Chanukah and says Arizal, what should the kavanah be on the 8th day of Chanukah? Noitzer, Chesed, La'alafim, Noitzer, Avoin, Vafesh, V'chata, V'nakeh. Basically, the last 6 kavanos, right? Because the first 7 days are the 7 kavanos, and then Noitzer, Chesed, La'alafim, Noitzer, Avoin, Vafesh, V'chata, V'nakeh. So you have another 6 kavanos. So what's going on over here? Why is it that the first day we're only able to have 1 kavanah, second day 1 kavanah, third day 1 kavanah? Comes the 8th day of Chanukah, and you could just finish it up. What's the meaning of this? Well, Rav Moshe Wolfson in the Sefer Amunah Sitecha points out that there's a precedent for this, and that is on the first day of Chanukah, we read the Nasi, one Nasi by Yom HaRishon, and the second day, we also one Nasi, and then Vayom HaSheni, Vayom HaShlishi, but pretty much today we laid one Nasi, and then comes the 8th day of Chanukah and we finish them all up. So what's the meaning of that? Why are we not able to lane more than one Nasi until the 8th day of Chanukah? All of a sudden the 8th day of Chanukah comes and then we have the ability to read so much. Now, says Rav Wolfson Shlita, that there is a concept that sometimes a person does not have the container and the receptacle with which to house so much Kedusha. So it comes the end of the month as the moon is waning, and therefore the Koyach of Klal Yisrael is not as powerful, and we don't have as much capability of receiving so much Kedusha. But as the beginning of the month comes, Rosh Chodesh, you could barely see the moon, but as we are energized on Rosh Chodesh, comes the 8th day of Chanukah, and now our capacity to accept Kedusha has been greatly enhanced. Amazingly, if you look in Parshas Vayishlach, at the end of the Parsha, who remembers? What does the end of Parshas Vayishlach speak about? Let's see. The Alufs of Esav, and the very end talks about the Malachim. Ve'ela ha-malachim asher malchu be'eretz Edom. Vayimloich be'Edom, who is the first king? Bela. What happened to him? Vayamas. Who came next? Yovav. What happened to Yovav? He died. Vayamas Yovav. Who came after him? Chusham. What happened to Chusham? Vayamas. Who came after Chusham? Hadad. What happened to Hadad? Vayamas Hadad. Who came after him? Samla. What happened to Samla? He died. Who ruled after him? Shaul. What happened to Shaul? Vayamas Shaul. Who ruled after him? Baal Chanan. What happened to Baal Chanan? Hadar. Who's Hadar? V'shem Iroi? Pa'u. Pa'u. Interesting. V'shem, what's his wife's name? Mehei Tavel. Bas Matred. Bas Mezahav. The 8th king. His name is Hadar. Rabbi Isai, what happened to Hadar? Nothing. Nothing happened to him. He didn't die. The first 7 died. The 8th king didn't die. Al Pi Kabbalah, the end of Parshas Vayishlach is an expression that is known as Shviras HaKelim, the breaking of the vessels. What does that mean? That means that they were not able to contain all the Kedusha that was emanating down from the world, and they sort of self-combusted. They did not have the Kelim, they did not have the receptivity to receive and accept and contain so much Kedusha. But points out Rav Wolfson, interestingly, the 8th king, Hadar, he didn't die. He didn't die All we know about him is his wife. He had a wife, and who is the wife? Bas Mei Zahav. Says Rav Wolfson, the koyach of this 8th king is the koyach of Chanukah. The first days of Chanukah, the first 7 days, were very limited. We don't have the full capacity. We don't have the full capability. Each day we can only accept one midah, the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim. We can only read about one of the Nesiyim. Comes the 8th day of Chanukah, and the koyach of the 8th day of Chanukah comes at the beginning of the Chodesh, from Rosh Chodesh. And we have the capacity to expand our receptivity and our capability. It comes from the king Hadar. Hadar is a lashon of Mahadrin. It comes from the 8th king who wasn't Vayamas. Why not? How is the 8th king able to withstand all this gush and torrent of Kedusha? And the answer is, as we've explained from the Maral, the number 8 represents Lamala min hateva, above and beyond nature, overriding the constraints and limitations of the physical, finite, earthly world. Comes the 8th day, the Iker light of Chanukah, which is revealed on the 8th day, that we light 8 candles. It comes from the Olam Hashmini, in all of its glory, B'chal Hadaroi, in all of its glory. And on this day we could be Makabel, Lamala Me Hateva. This is the Gemar of Mahadrin min HaMahadrin. This is the Melech Hadar. And therefore, we're able to connect to the last 6 of the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim. And on this day, there's no Shviras HaKelim. This day we could read all the Nesiyim, all of these Oros, which are really Lamala Michaltenu, we're able to receive on this 8th day. This is the day of Zois Chanukah. We could then add that who is this gentleman by the name of Hadar? He lived in the city of Pa'u. What is Pa'u? What is the gematria of Pa'u? Gematria of Pa'u is 156. Who's 156? Yosef is 156. Tzion is 156. Who does he overcome? Antiochus is 156. This is the 8th day of Chanukah, the city of Pa'u. Now, we also mentioned that if we could say a remez nifla, which is a matana min hashamayim, we know that the menorah has 49 parts. It has 22 goblets and 9 brachim and 11 kaftoirim. And the Sheva Knei HaMenorah is another 7. So the menorah really has 49 parts. But Moshe didn't understand the menorah, because the menorah itself is the 50th gate of wisdom. The menorah itself is the 50th gate of wisdom. Moshe didn't know the Shar Chamishim. When did Hashem teach Moshe the Shar Chamishim? But when he taught him and he explained to him the menorah. You see, the Malbim points out, very interestingly, that if you look in Sefer Bereshis, whenever it says, Vayomer Elokim, it says, Vayomer Elokim, Vayehi Chen, Vayehi Chen, Vayehi Chen. Except on the 2nd day. What does it say on the 2nd day? It says, except by the creation of the Ar. Look very carefully. It says by the Ar, Vayomer Elokim Yehi Ar, Vayehi Ar. It doesn't say Vayehi Chen. Every other time it says Vayehi Chen. Why doesn't it say Vayehi Chen by the Ar? Says the Malbim, because it wasn't Chen. Hashem said, let there be Ar Haganos. And it wasn't. Hashem had to put away the Ar Haganos. So it wasn't Vayehi Chen, but rather it was Vayehi Ar. There was some light, but it wasn't exactly as Hashem said it. When Aaron lit that menorah on the inauguration of the Mishkan, what does it say? It says we're going to lean it tomorrow, the beginning of Bahaloischa. It says that Ribbon Shalom showed Moshe Rabbeinu the menorah. And what does the pasuk say when Moshe Rabbeinu was shown the menorah? Vayas Cain Aharon. Aaron made Cain. The Cain that it should have said on the words Vayomer Elokim Yehi Ar, it should have said Vayehi Chen. It wasn't Chen. Not until Aaron made the menorah, and then the Chen of the Ar Haganos came down to the world. What is the closing words of tomorrow's laning? Kamara Asher Hashem Moshe Kain Asa Samanoira. He made the menorah Kain. That means the Ar Haganos came down when Aaron built the menorah, and as Hashem showed Moshe Rabbeinu the menorah. The menorah is the 50th branch of wisdom. Mar Rabbi say, it's Ayon menorah. If you count the number of psukim that we are going to lane tomorrow, 50 psukim. Zois Chanukah, we will lane 50 psukim. Why 50 psukim? Because on Zois Chanukah, when Aaron HaKoyen, when we read how Aaron HaKoyen made the menorah, the 50th branch of wisdom was revealed to Moshe and to Aaron to some degree. Maybe that is why the 8th king in Parsha Vayishlach, Hadar, Loshen Mahadrin, Pa'u, 156, Keneged Antiochus and Yosef. What's the mother's name? May. May is 50, of course. May, and what was the menorah made out of? May Zahav, it was made out of gold. So a remes to Zois Chanukah is in the 8th king of the Alufei Esav. Because after all, we hope and we're maspalel that Chasoif Zraya Kadshecha V'karev Ketz HaYeshua Nekaim Nikmas Dam Avdech Me'uma Harasha. Who's the Uma Harasha? That's Edom, that's Esav. Ke'archalanu HaYeshua V'en Ketz Medechei Admoin B'tzel Tzalmoin Hakem Lanu Raya Shiva. We hope to push away Admoin. Admoin will self-destruct through the koyach of the 8th melech of Edom. The 8th melech of Edom is Hadar, Lashon Mahadrin. He doesn't die because on the 8th day you have the koyach of being masig lamala michaltenu. May we be zoicha to makabel all of the oiros of Zois Chanukah Balenu Le Taiva.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.